What is up, everybody? It is Rodak here with Rodak Revival, and I'm finally getting the video out to you guys of going over the new bikes. I apologize it took me 2 days after the update came out to show you guys these new bikes. It's just work has been a little bit busy, so if you guys want to help out to where maybe I can do this maybe part-time or maybe full-time in the future, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button, and let's jump into it. That update changed a few things. It changed the engine braking. It also changed the fact that we can change individual gearing now. Instead of just doing the front and back sprocket, we can now change individual gearing. Another big thing that changed was the engine mapping. They have like the normal standard mapping and they have a race mapping on every single bike now as well. But they didn't say anything about power delivery, so I still think some of the bikes, like the Austrian bikes, are still gonna be faster even though all the bikes are the same speed. We're really looking for power delivery to be able to like hit triples out of corners and stuff. It remains to be seen. We got to go out there and do some testing on all the bikes and see what works for us. But I think most importantly, everyone was excited because we were getting the Triumph models and we were getting the Beta models. So as we take a look at these bikes, I think the Triumph has always looked super clean. I couldn't wait for it to be in the game. I definitely had model swaps of the Triumph on other bikes at times just because I love the way it looks. Now I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't know too much about the Beta. I know visually, for me personally, it's not a bike that stands out to me that looks very good, but I mean, if the bike rips, even if it doesn't look good, then I'll be riding it. So as we jump in here, I am on one of the JV test tracks. I figured everybody else's videos would be on like the ARL test track or something, so I wanted to do something different. But I'm gonna ride the Triumph 250 and 450 and the Beta 450, and I'm also going to do a few laps of them with the standard mapping, and then I'm also gonna do a few laps of them with the race mapping. But let me quit yapping and let's go ahead and jump into this testing. So starting off, we are here on the Triumph 250 on the normal mapping. So this is a completely stock. There's no setup, no race mapping on the engine mapping. This is just completely stock. Now I will say, completely stock, fresh out of the box, this thing is absolutely slow, not on the race mapping. Now obviously if you're into competitive racing or just racing in general, I don't think you're gonna be on the normal mapping, you'll be on the racing mapping. But before we go and judge the bike, you gotta also remember, like I said, fresh out of the box, stock. There is no suspension setup, there's no race mapping. I think if anyone's playing competitive, you're gonna have a setup and you're gonna have the race mapping on. But I wanted to see the difference between the standard and the race mapping. But even in second gear coming out of corners, it just lugs up the jump. Like I am not able to hit any rhythms on this track. I'm basically only able to double around and that's it. But like I said, I wanted to be able to see the true difference between the standard mapping and the race mapping. So after a few laps, I got tired of just being able to double around the track. Let's throw it on the race mapping and see how that goes. Now already I can feel a massive difference. Granted, there is no suspension setup, so turning and everything is a little bit hard. But as far as speed wise and having a little bit of pop out of the corners and everything is definitely a lot better. Now I'm still not able to hit like a bunch of the big rhythms, but like I said, suspension plays a big part of that as well. It's not just about how fast you can go. But I will say, comparing this bike to, it definitely feels very big, like boaty. It kind of feels like the Suzuki to me, the Suzuki 250. I don't know, it just feels a little bit heavy in the air. I don't know if that's something that can be worked with or what, but it definitely does feel a little bit heavy. I do believe that it is a bike that can be made to work. I think every bike can work in this game, to be completely honest with you, just based on how you set up your bike. So I'm not gonna sit here and say it's slow or it's terrible. I think the bike could actually be pretty good, and now with all the race mapping that we have, I think it could be pretty good. It's just gonna need a setup. Now real quick, I'll show you guys my fastest lap on the Triumph 250 with the race mapping, but everything else is stock. So that was the Triumph 250, completely stock, but on the race mapping. You guys need to go out there and test it for yourself. Don't take my word as gospel. Everybody has a different feel in this game, but that is the Triumph 250. Let's move on to the Beta 450. And I will just say, fresh out of the box, completely bone stock, even on the standard mapping, this thing is absolutely a rocket ship. Going from that Triumph 250 to immediately going over and testing the Beta 450, I actually had a lot of trouble getting around the track and not looping out. The thing has so much traction and it's super fast. And the crazy thing is I haven't even thrown it on the race mapping yet. Obviously, you can see me struggling around here a little bit. Some of that is a skill issue and some of that is not having any suspension on this bike. This bike feels unusually a little bit stiff. Usually they're a little bit softer when they're out of the box, but I don't know, this bike feels a little bit stiff. Had trouble getting through the whoop sections and even on some of the transitions of the jumps. But even with having some of those issues in between the jumps, it still had so much speed that I could still hit the rhythms. I definitely think this is one of those bikes that you're gonna wanna put like a longer swing arm on and everything, because it just kept looping out on me. No matter what I did, leaning forward, leaning back, I was really having to feather that throttle or just wanted to loop out. Now we've moved over to the race mapping, and I'm gonna be honest with you, the power delivery was a little bit better in the race mapping than it was in the standard one, to be honest with you. It was faster, but it seemed more controllable. I wasn't looping out as much. Granted, it still happened from time to time here and there, and I was going through the whoops so fast with no suspension, so it made it really hard to get to the whoop section, but I was able to string together some laps and put some laps together and hit some big rhythms. Even coming out of the corners feeling like I didn't have the speed. The bike has so much pop and it has so much speed. It just felt like, I don't know, nothing could stop it. I feel like it just goes right through the jumps. There is no like pop up in the air. It just goes. This one also, like the Triumph, feels pretty heavy like the Suzuki. I don't know if that's anything that can be fixed with suspension, but I am definitely interested to see how this bike comes out once somebody gets a good suspension on it and gets a good setup on it, because I think this bike could definitely be viable for even some of the top contenders out there. Like, the bike is just extremely fast. So here I will show you guys my fastest lap on the race mapping beta. So yeah, like I said, as you can see there, the thing is a beast, and I'm somebody that can't even qualify for pro races. So like I said, don't take whatever I say as gospel. I'm not the most skilled at this game. If you want to see somebody super fast ride it, go watch Lenz's video from his live stream, or go watch Trojan's video or Reaper Doc's video. But with somebody like myself being that like beginner intermediate level, I think I can relate to the casual player a little bit more than those guys can, just because no shade against them. They're just so fast that they're like the 1 to 2% of the game. I feel like I can relate to people who just jump on the game casually and play and aren't looking to be competitive, because that's where I feel like I'm at right now. I'm trying to be competitive, but I'm just not good enough yet. But yeah, the Beta 450, I think we're gonna see this bike quite a bit throughout the ARL season and possibly even during the outdoor season, because the bike is fast. Now let's go ahead and move on to the Triumph 450. Now the Triumph 450, completely out of the box, stock, no race mapping on it, feels a lot like the 250. It just lugs trying to get out of the corners and stuff. It's obviously faster than the 250 because it's a 450, so no need to go over that there. The bike and everything, as far as the geometry, all kind of feels the same as the 250. It feels a little bit big, feels a little bit boaty. The way I can describe it is like the Suzuki again. But I will say, out of the box, it doesn't have the same speed as the Beta does, but it handles better than the Beta does, at least for me. And I think that goes back to what I was saying about like every bike having the same speed but not having the same delivery. That Beta, you saw me just wheeling out. I was not having those issues with the Triumph, but the Beta also felt pretty big and luggish to get around the corners, but the Triumph seemed like it could turn on a dime and turn pretty sharp. But yeah, straight out of the box, the Beta on the non-racing mapping compared to the Triumph on the non-racing mapping, the Beta just definitely feels 100% faster. But let's go ahead and throw that Triumph on the race mapping. Now already, even in the first couple of sections, I can already see the race mapping completely improves this bike even more, and with that setup being on it, I like this bike more than I do the Beta. That's at least as of right now, with no setups on them, just blind feel of how I like the bike. I like my bike to be a little bit more mellow and not so rigid when it comes to like the throttle and everything. So the Triumph definitely fits me a little bit better because it just doesn't have that pop to where I'm always having to worry about looping out. Like I said, maybe the Beta can be fixed that way with like a longer swing arm or something, but out of the box, the Triumph definitely feels more smooth and better for me. And like I said, I can cut down in corners a lot easier. It feels like it handles a lot better in my opinion, but got to do something about that engine and that gearing, because even on the race setting, the Triumph 250 and 450 just seems like it doesn't have that pop coming out of corners and in and out of the pockets between jumps. It definitely feels like it's lacking there. That can probably be fixed. Just got to do some testing and figure out what works. But yeah, definitely lugs coming out of the corners. But here I go. I will show you guys my fastest lap on the Triumph 450 on the race map. So there was my Triumph 450 fastest lap, but to give my overall thoughts, I think all the bikes can be viable just because like I think every bike other than maybe the TM is viable in MX bikes already. Yes, we have our contenders that are the KTM and the Husky, and those are the fastest bikes, and I still think that could be the case, although I think the Beta can give it a run for its money. But with these three, what I would say is the Triumph felt better to me as far as handling goes. The Beta was 100% absolutely faster than the Triumph 450, both being on the same race mapping and they're supposed to have the same top speed. The power delivery for the Beta was just way different. I had no trouble hitting the big lines on the Beta, and still I would, if I got a corner a little bit wrong on the Triumph, I would still be able to come up short on it or miss it completely. As far as the 250 goes, I think you can make that thing work. I haven't compared it to any of my other bikes, and I'm definitely gonna be doing that in the future, putting it up against like the bikes that I like to ride, like the Husky and the Yamaha. But it's definitely gonna be some testing, and it's definitely gonna be a lot of trial and error trying to figure out these bikes. But I'm sure SPX and some of those other guys on Discord that do the suspension setups are definitely going to have something out for these bikes probably pretty quick, and we'll be able to have at least a base to start off with there. But yeah, I just like to see the game growing. I like to see new manufacturers coming into the game. That just makes the scene even bigger, and now we have them in the game, so it's going to be awesome to play around with them. And it's something new, it's something fresh, and it keeps you from getting a little bit of that burnout when you think you found the perfect setup on the bike that you only ever ride. So now we got something new to test, we got something new to ride. I'm excited about it. And yeah, like I said, don't take everything I say as gospel. Go out there and try it for yourself. And if you like the video, hit the like button, hit that subscribe button as well, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.